Hello, everyone. I'm Robyn Grable, the founder of Talents Ascend and the Ascend Collective, and your host for Ascending Beyond Barriers. Welcome. Ascending Beyond Barriers is an inspiring podcast dedicated to showcasing the remarkable journeys of small business founders who have faced and overcome significant challenges on their path to success. Each episode delves into the personal stories of entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds, highlighting their unique experiences, struggles, and triumphs. Welcome back to the Ascending Beyond Barriers podcast, where we lift voices, share stories, and celebrate the stories, the incredible journeys of veterans, military spouses, change makers who are breaking through barriers every day. Before we dive in, please subscribe, share so you never miss an episode, and a huge thank you for supporting our mission to elevate talent, transform communities, and build futures. Super excited today to have Geoff and Brittany Anderson on. I'm just excited to tell you their stories, and we're in for an incredible conversation. So let's dive in. Brittany, Geoff, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being on to share your story, because you've had an incredible journey. I typically like to start with the veteran side. I'm a Navy veteran, but I will tell you, Air Force is going to be near and dear to my heart. My oldest granddaughter is leaning towards going to the Air Force Academy, her dream of being an astronaut. So that's kind of where her trajectory is starting. So Geoff, tell us about your time in the Air Force. I'll date myself by saying, and giving a prelude to what you're going to talk about, Air Force One is one of my favorite movies. Harrison Ford. I know I'm dating myself. It's an old movie. You probably haven't even seen it, never heard of it, but
oh no, I have.
Seen it, yeah. Okay. Love that movie. Get off my plane. I love that line when he says that. So tell us about your time in the Air Force. Let's start there.
Awesome. Well, first off, thank you for having us on this podcast, and thank you for your service too. That's wonderful, and all the best of luck to your family there. We can talk afterwards. I am not a Academy grad. I was an ROTC grad. I grew up in Southern California and did it that route. Flying's been in my background, but most of my family is Navy Marine fighter pilots. But my dad went Air Force, and so I just kind of had that aspiration to fly from a very young age, and so I pursued that. Throughout ROTC, I got my pilot slot, and then my first assignment after pilot training in Mississippi was to Washington, D.C. at Andrews Air Force Base at the time, and I flew a little DV airlift plane called the C-21. It's like a Lear 35, and for most people, you're like, what is that plane? Well, it was just basically flying DV senators, congressmen all around the U.S. and overseas. That kind of gave me kind of a really big breadth of flying experience from such a young age that a lot of pilots don't realize. And then after that, it was during that assignment that Brittany and I met in DC in the Arlington side of the house. She was a journalist down working in the Watergate building for National Journal and Government Executive Magazine under the Atlantic Media Company. From there, actually, we met, and then I deployed 2 weeks later. So our initial onslaught of getting to know each other was via satellite phone. Thank you for the taxpayer money for all that. From a long distance overseas for 3.5 months. From there, I got an assignment to the C5 out of California, and that's where I did most of my combat experience to Iraq, Afghanistan, and all over the world, both that and contingency missions and humanitarian. And then we kind of were trying desperately to get back to the East Coast, to be close to family, to get Brittany back into the job market for her teleworking. She's had an amazing breadth and experience with different jobs, including Paralyzed Veterans of America when we were at our time in the West Coast. But it was time to get back there. But that was kind of a bump in the road for us because we worked really hard together to hopefully get our next assignment to go coast to coast, maybe to Dover for the C5. But I ended up landing a pilot training slot flying for the Euro-NATO Joint Jet Pilot Training Program, which is a very unique fighter-centric training program in Texas. So we landed ourselves in the middle of the country with 2 young kids, one that was a month old. And that started unique challenges for us as a family and definitely as a military spouse for Brittany. But it was a season of life that it was crazy, unexpected, but really defined us. And we would go back to that time in our life later on during our time back on the East Coast. After 3 years there, we were looking to it's that fork in the road for a pilot. It's a 10-year commitment. You're 12 years in and you're like, well, what do I do next? Do I get out like everybody else and go fly commercial? We kind of wanted to stay in and at least give it a shot. So we applied. Because of my DV experience from the get-go at Andrews, I knew of the blue and whites in DC, meaning the blue and white aircraft. That is the 89th Airlift Wing. And so we applied in 2015. I used most of I did a 6-month remote tour to Africa. And during that time, I was researching this job a lot and then putting out feelers with contacts and then put my package together. It was a 3-day interview. It was kind of exhausting, but out of that, we got hired to fly the 757, which was in the 89th and the 1st Airlift Squadron. And that mission there's top 5 customers. It's the Vice President, the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and the First Lady. So those are our bread and butter customers. So I found myself early on after getting called to flying Joe Biden as Vice President, and then later on Pence. And then while I was in that unit, you're constantly being looked at for the next higher thing. And so I was lucky enough in 2018 to go around the world on a mission. And they were already looking at me. They might have made their decision, but I went on the around the world mission for the Kim Jong-un's first summit with Trump. And it was on that mission that I was basically interviewed to be in the presidential airlift group for Air Force One. And so from that point forward to 2024, I was an Air Force One pilot, one of 12 in a unit that's extraordinary from both the air crew side of the house and the maintenance side of the house. An absolutely incredible assignment. I get asked all the time, how did you land that? And I think I come up with a different answer each time, but that's basically it.
Wow, that's incredible. Brittany, we're going to get to your side of the story because there's a lot in there that we want to talk about because there's just a whole military spouse story in there I want to get to. But yeah, what a prestigious and congratulations. It's hard work. You earned that. So I think people, if they ask you how you landed that, they should ask you, congratulations, you earned that because it is. I mean, that's like the biggest thing you could be doing is flying those dignitaries. I mean, it's just incredible. So congratulations on that journey. Now I know from your bio, the 2019 was kind of a tenuous year for the family. I can't imagine obviously what you go through. I know I was a former military spouse while I was on active duty and then a little time after I got out of the Navy. But my husband's orders always came first. His life, it was always his, even though I was active duty, it was always his assignment that took precedent and always his life that seemed to be more important than mine. But Brittany, tell us about your journey as a military spouse. You meet 3.5 months of your first part of your adventure is long distance and you stuck in there. So tell us about your thoughts on military spouse life.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. That is for sure. I had no idea what I was signing up for. I don't have my grandfather served in the Army first and later in the Air Force. He was actually in both branches at one point, or at separate points. But that was all before I was even born. So I didn't really have any reference points to look back to in terms of, military service or military family or military spousehood or what any of that looked like. So I really had no idea what to expect. All I know was I met this person and he was calling all the time and being really sweet on the phone. And then, he got home from that deployment. He was not home for very long and then went back out for a few more months and then came home and proposed. So we dated most of the time over a satellite phone. I don't know, 7,000 miles from each other, whatever that was. I don't know what the exact distance was, but
about that.
I was 23 when we got married. So also very young, still starting my career. I was a journalist in DC. I loved my career, but journalists don't make a lot of money. So there was, just this kind of eagerness to start life and have that security. And so we, a year after we got married, we moved to California. That was a really, really hard move for me because, I had to give up my career. I did stay in that position as kind of more of a freelance job, shifted to covering IT because I was near Silicon Valley out in California. We had both of our kids out there. He was gone so much. It's a miracle we even had children because we were told I was going to have a hard time having kids. So we had both of our kids out there. And then, a month or just a few weeks after our son was born, he's now going to be 13 this week. Just a couple of weeks after that, we moved to Texas. So that was a crazy season of life as well. Moving with a 2-week-old and driving separate cars, moving to Texas. So it's definitely had its blessings and also just a lot of challenges. It's hard to maintain a career when you're moving so much. It's hard to maintain a support system. We loved our church in some places. We didn't love it in others. And so having that community was challenging. Building a career in your own life. I often say I felt like because, he didn't necessarily do a lot of long deployments. I know a lot of military service members do, but for me, it was almost, I don't want to say it was more challenging, but it felt just as challenging because there was no predictability. There was no certainty. It was just, he's home for a couple days, then gone for 2 weeks, home for a couple days, gone for 2 weeks. And we couldn't plan anything. Mm-hmm. And so that was really, really challenging. And I always say, I felt like there were these two versions of myself. There was this devoted wife on the occasion he was home. And then there was this single mom who had to function on her own most of the time. Mm-hmm. And so, that's really what kind of part of what led to the breakdown in 2019 was just this ability to, how do I straddle these two lives? I don't know if I want to do it anymore. And I know I'm not alone in feeling that way. I know a lot of military spouses who feel that same tension. Absolutely. So it's definitely challenging.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because you're right. You are not alone in that. I mean, it's a struggle. When we moved from Maine to Hawaii, my husband at the time had to go to SEER school, the survival, training school in California. So I moved with our 14-month-old from Maine to Hawaii all by myself. Mm-hmm. And that was 1985. There were no satellite phones. There were no cell phones, I was totally disconnected and moving clearly away from family, from friends, from everything, and all by myself. And I was only, so that was 85. So I was 24 at the time. So young, had a 14-month-old. And we were there for probably 4 months before he arrived. So it is hard. You're figuring out who you are as a person, and you're married. So you want to figure out who you are as a wife, as a spouse, and then you have children, and they're dependent on you. So, wow. So all of this bubbles up, understandably, absolutely. But it's led you to, now you've got Renala Consulting, which I want to hear about, because I love the line you have in your bio that says leadership starts at home, which I believe. I only had one. My daughter's an only child, but she has 5 of her own. Yes. Amazing. The oldest is 16, wants to be an astronaut and go the way of the Air Force Academy, as I mentioned. But I see what home life with that many and that kind of structure needs. So tell us about Renala and how that came about, and what and I've been married now for 30 years, my second marriage, 30 years. Somebody asked me recently, how do you stay married for 30 years? I have no idea. We laugh a lot every day. He makes me laugh. He's the complete opposite of me. But tell us about Renala.
Yeah, so it was really birthed out of our own pain and our own recovery and redemption story. And I I started my career as a journalist, as I said, and then worked at some nonprofits doing strategic communications work. But then shifted to being a corporate facilitator. I got my coaching certification in 2021 and was doing a lot of executive coaching, facilitation type work at a large consulting firm, particularly with government agencies when we were back in DC. And, I was going to work every day and helping, some of these well-known nonprofits, government agencies, companies develop vision, purpose, values, develop a brand identity, and really discover who they are as an organization, as a team, as a culture. And yet I was thinking, we don't create these same kind of guiding principles in our families. And why is that? You wouldn't go to work for an organization, or you probably wouldn't be really very happy in an organization that didn't have those guiding principles in place, right? It kind of helps us filter out the organizations we want to work for, the cultures we want to be a part of. And yet, again, we overlook that's the power of that same work in our families. And so that's really how Renala came to be, was this whole idea of how do we, bring these kind of strategic principles that we practice in organizations into our homes. It can feel a little bit, I don't know, some people think it's a little icky to have a brand for your family. But I disagree. I think, your family is telling a story all of the time. And when you're grounded in that story, grounded in who you are for the world, for each other, who you are as individuals. And that's really what we help families do, is facilitate a process that enables them to live in vision, live their purpose, live their values, and understand each other, build stronger support systems, help guide each other and support each other through the lens of their strengths, what's right about you versus what's wrong. Yes. And so it's kind of started to do this work with families, and then just became obsessed with play, this whole idea of play.
Yes.
So I really explored play because I wanted a way to engage kids in the process. Like, how do we engage kids in this process that's just natural for them? But the more we've gotten into it, the more we've discovered how powerful play is for adults as well. And so I have a certification in Lego serious play. So we use a lot of Legos, we use art, games, storytelling, different modalities to help a family better understand each other, build that vision, purpose, and values, and build sustainable systems and commitments in the day-to-day to work together and grow together. And so, we believe leadership does begin at home. If you can lead well, if you can lead these people who, you're with more than anyone else, if you can lead them well, you can lead them through the lens of your strengths and their strengths. If you can lead with vision and values and purpose, then you can lead well anywhere. We really believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're taking care of the humans that you brought into the world and the family that you created, I mean, you can go to work for somebody and you can choose to leave that. You can choose to leave your family too, but most of the time you're committed to that family and wanting to make that work, and especially when you have children. So Geoff, I'll ask you, what, like, this, it almost feels like the world flipped, which is sometimes how it usually is when service members get out of the military spouse's life kind of blossoms and takes form because they've stood on the sidelines for so long. How is it working together, and how does it feel, having this business and not flying dignitaries, but forming dignitaries, really, when you think about it?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's actually a very relevant question right now. 2025 was a great year, but it was a stressful year and challenging year for us. And I think we're looking at the lessons learned out of that. And when we go into 26, we're going to, tweak some things and have, renewed vision and everything else. And why do I say that? Because getting off active duty is tough. It's an identity that I carried, and the book describes the basic coaching principle of be, do, have. There's a form of my identity that was just in what I did. Even though the latter parts of my time in Air Force One, which is a very amazing unit, And I say that not because of the mission we did, which is obviously paramount, but it was the people we did it with, and that I still talk to today, that I'm able to like just be really vulnerable and open with, and share just a uniqueness, not only because what we did, but just who we are as people. And so, that part is just, it's gone, and it's not like gone, but it's just like, it's different. And so I still fly corporate right now. And that has its unique challenges or whatever. And some of it's the same challenges we went through. It's an unpredictable schedule there. It's taking me time. And so I think as we go into this next year, we're still looking at ways to do this work together more efficiently and effectively. And I think we're on the precipice of that. The book was a huge launch this year, but with it came its own challenges, because we were in the midst of being on podcasts just like now and others, and writing this book, especially Brittany did all the writing and then collaborating, but it was bringing up 2019 again and again and again. But I think there's some greatness out of the challenges that we came out of this year, is that Renala is actually working. It's working at our own home, even though it's stifling things that are, in our past. But it's just a matter, it's actually showing us that the work that we have done, and we're uncomfortable with like certain directions, because our vision is so rooted in trying to change the status quo of what we had before, and trying to help others in the future.
That's amazing. Yeah. So the book, tell us about the book, and then I want to get to the fun activities that you do, because I'm all about business fun and putting fun into things, especially now that I have 5 grand cherubs. They've just brought all that back to my life. But tell us about the book, and where can people find it?
Yeah, it's called Living Room Leadership, a blueprint for building a family culture of vision, growth, and connection. And you can find it on Amazon. It sold out twice on Amazon. We launched on October 14th. It's surpassed our expectations multiple times. So super excited. We published it with our partners at Astoria, which run the Story Conference in Nashville every year. And yeah, it's really a primer on the work that we do. So it's kind of our 9-part framework that we walk families through that Be, Do, Have blueprint. The B is that, who each of you are as individuals. Your identity, your strengths, your needs, patterns, conflict patterns that you experience. And then we focus on the have. What is the vision, the purpose, the values? That's who you are as a family. So be and have are like the foundational understanding of who you are as individuals and as a family. And then do is the bridge between be and have. It's what are the daily patterns, daily systems, daily commitments that we need to make to realize our vision, to live our values. And that looks like your commitments, your systems, in a culture of play. How are you playing together and saying yes to each other each day? So the book is really broken down into those 9 key pieces, and a little bit about our story. And really, it's very practical in how to implement the work that we do, kind of DIY it. Obviously, you can't necessarily play your way through it, because that is a facilitated process that we do in person and online with families. But it is a great entry point into doing this work as a family and bringing some of those strategic business principles and guiding principles home, and how to do that well.
Love that. Wow. So the fun part of it, your Legos thing, I smiled, because when I every duty station I was ever at, I always created some sort of fun thing, because it was just bringing the people together, or it was just familiarity of home, or creating that family. When it started when I was in Iceland for 2 years, and so and then when I got out of the Navy and went to work for a Fortune 500 company, I got the opportunity to bring business fun into our call center. And we had a Lego game one time where they won Lego pieces based on call center metrics or whatnot. And then they came together as a team and they built something out of the Legos that they had won. So it wasn't a finite number. They had to win a certain number of certain colors and things like that. So I love business fun. And I just launched in January, it came out of our business F words, and fun being that. Business has an F word, and I call it fun. So it's a newsletter blog that I do, but we have a fun activity. But tell us how you implement games and fun into the work.
Yeah. So when I say Legos, a lot of people get a little nervous because they're like, oh, it's like Lego Masters or something. And it's not like that. Most of the things that people build are not beautiful and don't make any sense to anybody who did not build them. And so, yeah, we're helping facilitate a process. And it can look different each time. I mean, you'd be so surprised what you're able to do with Legos or objects like scarves and little objects and picture image cards and things like that. So yeah, we're facilitating a process to help them understand who they are, and building a Lego build, kind of a landscape that is emblematic of who they are, their strengths, their identity, their needs, their aspirations and visions that they have individually and together. And, I facilitated a process for a group of entrepreneurs last weekend. We were unpacking their childhood financial narratives using Lego. And it was one of the more powerful processes I've facilitated. It was very deep and very difficult, a lot of hard stories. And so, yeah, you would be surprised at how much you can cover and how much gets uprooted by playing through it. When you're using both of your hands, you're activating 80% of your brain. Whereas if you're just talking aloud, you're only activating 15%. And so this is really powerful work, and it's very healing, and we're able to cover a lot of ground in, sometimes in as little as a couple hours. So we work with families. Generally, it can be up to, as little as a couple hours. It can be up to 3 days. Sometimes we're working with just a couple. Sometimes we're working with an individual who just needs some support, and then working with a couple, working with the full family. And so, yeah, that's and we're doing retreats. We're planning and thinking about launching a cruise this year. So doing this work in conjunction with some type of experience like a cruise. So they're getting this vacation experience, but they're also not going home feeling like, well, that was great, back to work, not really feeling like any shifts have happened, which I think is commonplace for a lot of us. We go on vacation, it's great, and then we go jump back into crazy life without really feeling, continuing or maintaining that connection that we felt on vacation. So these experiences are really designed to give you that vacation, that connection time, but also send you home with things like a vision and a purpose and a set of values and a better understanding of each other and a support system. And getting to play Legos on a cruise ship. I mean, that's amazing. So yeah, so things like that. And then we're getting ready to launch a paid newsletter that will give families some support in the day-to-day, giving them monthly exercises to have in a monthly meeting together. And then a family vision course. We have the book, all of that fun stuff. So yeah, play is really integrated into everything we do. Whether it's virtual or in person. In person is certainly our favorite way to work.
Wow. Well, we're almost out of time. Do you think, and I just want to ask this question, and I'm going to ask you to give your advice. So do you think, and I see it, like I mentioned, my 5 grand cherubs, I think when we play together, and they've kept us so young, my husband and I, because they see the world differently. They see the joy in the world. They see the just in the innovation and the creativity and no barriers. And adults lose that. Is that part of your mentality on bringing that kind of that playfulness back into life for adults? Is that part of your strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk about this in the book, but there's a study that NASA did in the 1980s that looked at, they developed an assessment. There's a man named George Land. He talks about this in a TED Talk, and as well as a book. He developed this assessment for NASA to identify the most creative people, applicants for jobs to work at NASA. And he discovered, he was like, this test is pretty simple. It's not complicated. He's like, we could give it to kids. Let's give it to kids and see how they do. So they gave it to something 5,000 kids in the Head Start program. 98% of them tested as creative geniuses. So they said, wow, this is really successful. Let's make this a longitudinal study. So they studied them again at 10 years, at 15 years. And then they didn't follow them into adulthood, but they've they've studied thousands of people in adulthood, and only 2% in adulthood maintain that level of creative genius. It slowly declined as they did that longitudinal study on those same kids, that the 98% of it got down to like 60% and 30% or something like that. I don't know the exact numbers, but so yeah, we talk about that in the book, and how, this work is really designed to activate the genius of your kids and help them maintain that level of genius into adulthood, that they're not losing it, so that we're creating the leaders that our world needs for tomorrow. That is so important. But at the same time, we believe that you can recover the level of creative genius that you had as a child now as an adult by doing that process with your kids. And so, it's kind of this beautiful exchange of play and fun, and rediscovering who you are, and re-becoming that creative self that you had as a child. And so, we want to see more creative, innovative leaders, not just for the future, but now. We believe it's possible now, and we need them.
Yes, we do. Thank you. And I know for me personally, just having the play and whatnot, it's brought out a lot of creative juices in me in my older years. So, all right, we're going to close out. I want to hear from both of you your advice for military families going through the same journeys and they're going to go on for generations. From the veteran side, from the military spouse side, what's your advice for making it work?
Here we go. I think a level of communication that is not not hiding the good. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Just keep communicating and not trying to make it all look good, which is certainly a thing that I did. I was like, I just want to make everything look good and pretty and perfect and everything else. Nope, don't do that. Just have a level set form of debriefing, because us as pilots in the Air Force, even after a sortie or a particular event, we're used to debriefing. But do I carry that same objective at home and not getting defensive and putting up my own wall? So a better set of debriefing and keeping that communication forward, because the one you care about is sitting right next to me. So.
Yeah. And I would add to that, we're telling ourselves stories all the time, whether they're true, whether they're not true. And so I don't believe everything you think. And so have some people in your corner who are willing to be honest with you, who you can be vulnerable with, open with. Always have that support system of people who can, challenge the stories that you're telling yourself, and giving you that support to, provide that support to yourself too. I've worked with multiple coaches over the years who have really challenged some of those stories I was telling myself, and in the process realizing they weren't necessarily true about marriage, about business, about motherhood, all of those things. And so really, having that support system and realizing not everything you think is true, and stepping into things that are messy and uncomfortable and pretty vulnerable. It applies to marriage as it does pretty much everything, but I think probably more to marriage than anything. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, congratulations on making it work. I'm so happy for the two of you and your family, and congratulations on the book and all the stuff that you're doing. I look forward to following and making sure if we can do anything, please let us know. We're just very happy to share these kind of stories and share your success and insights, because it's going to help others. So thank you so much for being here.
Sure thing. Thank you, Robyn.
Thank you, Robyn, for having us.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Ascending Beyond Barriers, where every story reminds us that potential deserves a pathway. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please follow, rate, subscribe, share, do all the things so that more people can discover these powerful voices. Our heartfelt thanks to everyone listening, especially our subscribers, for believing in this mission, for helping us shine a light on the people who deserve to be seen, heard, and supported. Until we meet again, keep believing in yourself, keep lifting others, and keep ascending beyond barriers.